The age of nerd is upon us. Welcome to the Nerd Age Podcast. This is a show where four dudes talk nerdy to each other. My name is Jonah, and I'm joined by the rider of the ninth cloud, Corey.
Wow, hi.
And the master of the house, Choop.
Oh, hello.
And the fourth man is missing.
And yeah, unfortunately, the fourth guy is not here, so it's going to be three dudes talking nerdy to each other. Before we get started, we've got a great episode, probably the best episode we've ever had, okay, on the Nerd Age Podcast.
That's true.
But before we get to that, if you're watching on YouTube, we'd appreciate it if you guys liked it and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on your podcast, wherever you get podcasts, share it around Facebook, Twitter. We appreciate you guys listening. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, might as well give us a 5-star review. That'd be really awesome and help us a ton. So we're going to get into our show. Like I said, the three of us here, Mick is Corona time. He's under the weather.
Oh.
So
Maybe. Allegedly. Who knows?
who knows? He's just under the weather. So he'll be back next week. We're going to start with Ahsoka episode 5. Huge episode. We've been hyping it up for a while.
Yeah, some more than others.
And we got an awesome episode. So, spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing? Go back and watch it. It's amazing. And then come back and listen to us geek out about it. Geek out about it.
Get about it.
So, what did you guys think of Ahsoka episode 5? Let's just, whatever you want. Let's just rapid fire. Whatever you like to talk about.
I mean, I think generally it was like perfect. I mean, not perfect. No, not perfect.
That's a 10 out of 10?
No.
Yeah.
It was close.
That can be nothing.
It was near perfect for me because we got to see so many awesome things that we love about this storyline, right? I mean, if you watch Clone Wars, if you watch Rebels, you're going to love this. Even if you didn't, if you're just in general a fan of, like, I don't know, Darth Vader, Anakin, this is it. Right, this is it. And it's so interesting, and it was really cool. The shots were really beautiful. So let's just talk about the cinematography. Really good. It's really funny. The Critical Role actor or whatever, his name's Sam Riegel. He's married to the cinematographer. I think what's the person who's in charge of the shots? I mean, cinematographer.
Yeah, cinematographer.
Yeah, but it's something. Yeah. Anyway. It's like Nguyen or something like that. I don't know what her name is, but she had some awesome shots in this. I mean, there's some incredible framed up shots that look just gorgeous. And also the sound design was just incredible as well.
Yeah.
I think some of the coolest things is just this whole like kind of like training arc thing between Ahsoka and Anakin. It was just amazing. It's like, it was very refreshing.
Yeah.
I keep saying this on some of these scenes, but it's true. I felt like it was true to what Star Wars for me is. And having these greater lessons and this kind of understanding and these very interesting dialogue that mean more than just the words, right? It's like very engaging. And for me, I think that, I think this is the best episode of Star Wars we've seen, I think, ever. In a TV show.
Absolutely.
Episodes So that's what got me going for sure. I was just super stoked about it.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. It looks amazing. Like even the shots, I feel like sometimes in the other shows like Mandalorian, you're kind of like, they did this on the volume. It kind of looks like they've used their resources to kind of get it to look decent. Andor, I think, was the exception. Andor looked amazing because a lot of that was on location. But this one's similar way. It was like even the stone place, where Hera and Jason are, it's like that. The shots there look really cool. The stuff they did in the Clone Wars flashbacks was awesome. How they used like the smoke and the explosions to see kind of outlines in the background of the ships and all that kind of stuff. It was just
the way the lasers were lighting up the smoke and stuff like that. That was just so really expertly done that it's just like those details is what keep you from saying to yourself, "Oh, this is a set."
Yeah.
Right.
It's like I was in it 100%.
Yeah.
Like there's no question about that being real to me.
Yeah. And a big part of that too, like you already said, the sound design, I thought one of the really cool moments was when he's like, listen to the waves and he hears the lightsabers start building up. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But even the music too. The music in this episode gave me chills. You got the throwbacks to like the Force theme at a perfect moment, again, with the lightsabers and the waves crashing. That was really well done. But even just the Clone Wars themes and stuff that we got in the last season of Clone Wars was just, it was brilliant. And this episode, like you said, I think is the best live action Star Wars episode we've ever gotten. And that's even over the ones with Luke that I think were really good.
Yeah.
From The Mandalorian.
There's just more to it, right? Like the Luke Skywalker episode was awesome, but it was the end of it.
Yeah.
Like it was a build up to that like set piece.
Yeah.
It was one set piece. This was a whole episode.
Yeah.
We had like 5 different set pieces of going back in time and kind of experiencing old memories and events and what's it called? Another World Between Worlds. Yeah. That was really well done, in my opinion, especially if you look at the base material from Rebels. It's just strokes of white in space. This was so much more than that. I love the fusion of the like glowing blue pathway and also the waters that she came from and went back into, and that kind of like flowingness of it all. It looked beautiful. Like it just worked so well for me.
Josh, you haven't said much. Go ahead.
It's hard to get a word in with you two.
Hey,
Jeez.
That's how the episode's going to be.
No, I agree that scene where he's like, listen to the waves. She doesn't believe him at first, and then she's like, okay, what am I listening for? That was an awesome moment. Just the way it built up. I mean, you guys already said it. The waves on top of, you slowly start hearing the lightsaber clashes, and then the music building up. I get chills every time. I watched the episode like twice. And every time you're like,
I watched it twice.
I get chills every time you do it. And it's also, I like that they brought Jason in, not just to be like, hey, that's the character from the other show that's just kind of hanging around in the background. They gave him something to do. They tied it into the story and it made sense.
Yeah.
And they explain it to the people that have no idea. Which
I love that.
I feel like Carson in that moment is like everyone that didn't watch Rebels and Clone Wars. He's
His father was Kanan Jarrus. He has abilities.
He's like, okay.
All right.
It's like, that's the everyman, basically. So
that was great.
I thought that was really great. And just an awesome scene. One of the coolest scenes we've seen in a while in an episode of already like amazing scenes and other stuff. So that was like early on, that was one of my favorite scenes.
The way it opened, I thought it was going to open straight with the Ahsoka Anakin conversation. And I actually really liked how it opened because I thought they open with Hu Yang and he's holding the Sabine's helmet. He says, I told them to stay together, but they never listen. Mm-hmm. I think his voice is awesome, first of all.
He's awesome.
But like David Tennant is awesome. But he looks so good. And the emotions they are able to do with his eyes is so good. That scene was like heartbreaking. And I was like, getting that emotion just from him being like, they never listen. And he says again, they never listen. Like
the pauses. And the second one was slower.
Right. And it was
sad.
The reason it got me, it felt like there was more to it. He wasn't just referring to Sabine and Ahsoka. He was referring to the Jedi in general, right? Like he's seen so many Jedi die, right? And so it felt like there was more weight to it. Like it wasn't just about Ahsoka and Sabine. It was about they never listen. The Jedi, all the ones that I've seen, all the Padawans that I've seen that are gone now, that are dead. So it was crazy to me that they could get that weight from
a robot.
It's just incredible.
Like facial.
Yes, and he looks back and
changed.
That's
make
it.
his eyes.
He looks back and his eyes go halfway. It's so good.
Awesome.
I just loved how that
to show emotion.
I mean, it was just so good, and I thought that opening was really great.
Yeah, I thought the title was also really interesting.
Yeah,
it was a
Shadow Warrior. I was like, okay, and let's see what this is all about. But yeah, I mean, getting into the World Between Worlds stuff, like all of it was just so well done. Just that initial shot going in of them standing facing each other, and then the slow build up to him igniting his lightsaber was just like, okay, are we gonna do this? And then just going straight into it was like, seeing Hayden Christensen do a lot of the same moves he did in the prequels was just amazing, and seeing live action Ahsoka fighting him was just like, it's like a fever dream.
Yeah, the GOAT is back, and he looked amazing.
He did look amazing.
Looked so good.
So I thought he looked good. Bree,
bro, we're about to fight you, bro. Let's fight Bree.
We're fighting Bree.
It's fine. She's not here to defend herself.
Good.
She was like, she said something to the level of like, oh, I can see they're trying to like he looks a little weird for her. I think she said it. He looked a little weird.
Well, she doesn't stare at his face every day like I do.
And I said, that's what I said. I was like, well, when's the last time you saw the actor? And then the actor in makeup. And then do you remember what he looked like? Did you know back then? You know, because one of the coolest things was these mother effers. They were de-aging him as they went younger and younger in the timeline. So it was like when we were on the bridge, that's like the oldest like version she saw last.
Right.
As
He's like
Revenge
Revenge
of
of
the
the Sith.
Yes. Yeah. And then as we went to the Clone Wars as we were going back when she was younger, he got younger.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, what an attention to detail.
Yeah.
Like that's what we want to see. That's what's been missing.
Well, even the hairstyle and his armor and all that kind of stuff, but even his voice.
Yeah, his
felt like it adjusted.
He like toned it up a little bit, like younger, a little
higher. Yeah, it adjusted to the times. And then obviously later on when you get him in full like Sith Anakin, like they did a little thing with his voice kind of hitting Vader's, like doing the modulation and stuff.
Yeah.
It was so good. You mentioned the dialogue between them, and I wanted to kind of circle back to that. The dialogue between them felt like it was straight out of the Clone Wars. Like it felt like Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka was the same one from the Clone Wars, and Hayden Christensen, even though he doesn't do the voice in the Clone Wars, it felt like dialogue, obviously because Dave Filoni is a part of it, but the dialogue felt really good. And one of the things that was incredible about it too is what we've talked about is Dave Filoni knows how to kind of give the fans that have seen everything a little something and give the ones that haven't, like you're not lost. Like when she says, I'm not going to fight you. And he says, I've heard that before. Well, that's exactly what she says in Rebels when they fight. You know, I'm not going to fight you. So that to me was like, oh my gosh, that's such a cool like attention to detail that if you haven't watched Rebels, you know, you just think, oh, well, he's heard that. Like, it's not a big deal. But for those that have watched it, it's just a little thing that gives you a bit of a like insight to it.
So on that kind of subject, I had a question for you guys. What were we seeing with Anakin? Were we seeing a ghost, a memory? Is this Ahsoka's memory of him? What version of Anakin was this? Like, in what form was this? Was this a memory? Was this his Force ghost? Was this a spirit?
I think
because go ahead.
I think this is actual Anakin.
Okay.
So people were saying it was a dark side, but I think he's already part of the Force, and and he's powerful enough, I think, that he's able to be in that situation. And I do think it was the training, like his final training to her, where we see the outcome as she becomes Ahsoka the White, right? She changes from this gray character that blames herself for everything, and he trains her to be like, no, you're, you know, I think it's Anakin using the Vader aspects, the dark side of him to teach a lesson to her.
I think it's also stuff that he learned in his late life with Luke.
Yes.
And what he taught him and what he learned from him. That's why I would say I think it is his Force ghost.
Yeah.
Because even though he changes forms throughout, you know, little by little, and he has these like moments of Darth Vader, but I think there's a fusion of her mind and her mental state kind of reminding herself who he turned into, you know, flashes of it, by the way, beautiful shots.
Yeah. Freaking amazing.
Some of the coolest things.
I think the shot where he's walking in
with the smoke behind,
and then it turns to Vader, I think that might be the best shot in all of Star Wars.
Really? I like the one him walking away.
That's the one I'm saying.
Okay.
The one where he's walking, where he's walking away and everyone's running
away and they're all running with him, and she just stares at him, and then it just flashes to red
and then back to blue.
Yeah,
that's I think the best shot in all of Star Wars.
It looks really beautiful.
All of Star Wars.
All of Star Wars.
Okay.
But I thought
Room kids got to fight words.
But I think that part of it is what, like, on the first watch through, I was like, all right, like I get it kind of. But on the second watch through, I really tried to listen as much as I could and kind of really look into what he was trying to teach her and kind of what was happening there. And that's kind of what I came on was like, oh, you know, this is like late. This is post-death Darth Vader, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, Anakin. And it's the redeemed, his redeemed spirit that's here. And he's cognizant of what's going on, I think, with her. And I think with Force Ghosts, they have a way of kind of looking into real life, like the current reality. And it was just really cool because that way, that connection that Ahsoka has with not only being able to like remember things, like hear things that happened in the past based on like links to items and stuff like that. This also connection with, the daughter, which we can get into if you want, but they didn't really do too much of it. But I think there's an amazing connection and possibilities Ahsoka has here because of the connection she has with this. And it's just so cool because, initially when we were talking about how are they going to do World Between Worlds? And, we had these fantastical ideas of, they're
time travel. They're going to see everything.
Because in Rebels, they have these portals and they're literally looking through these portals. And the way, by the way, Dave Filoni made that and he also did this. So it's like he took like a different take on it.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because it's hard to do that when you're a creator of something. You think this is how it should be done. And he had enough like introspection to look at himself and say, you know what? It's not going to work super well for live action. This is a better way of doing it. And I thought it did work way better. I loved how they did it and how it actually translated into story.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, and I feel like it doesn't have to be, I feel like a lot of times as fans we're like, these are the rules that need to be followed. And this is exactly how the World Between Worlds works. It's kind of like time travel. And it's like, who's to say that that's how it works every time? It's technically a manifestation of the living force, and the force works in mysterious ways.
The force is magic.
So the fact that it's like, hey, it worked differently in this case than we've seen it before. Yeah, people might complain that it's like that's a plot hole, but it's like no, because we don't know what the rules are. Yeah, they're literally making them up as they go, and I think it worked really well for the story that they're telling. And just with the thing with Anakin, I don't know if they'll ever explain what it was because it's like. Is he really a Force ghost? Like, what are the rules? Because I think technically in canon, there's like a weird thing where he can't be a Force ghost. There's like some weird thing about.
No, there's in a book, they said that the reason he didn't show up in The Last Jedi was because he fought.
Right.
Like, did something, and so he's weakened. That's how they mentioned it.
It's kind of a weird thing.
But I read it in a book. Okay, got it.
But in this case, it's like I definitely think that is 100% Anakin because he knows all these things.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. Maybe it takes more Force energy to become a Force ghost in real life because this was kind of her coming to the Force side.
That's true. She's on the other side.
It's easier to be there because it's all Force generated.
Yeah. And I think
we don't need to do this, but that's how I would justify.
I think with Force Ghosts, there's a element where they can't really like intervene. That's been kind of like they kind of do some teachings and stuff like that. But I think when you have Anakin, who is the chosen one, the most powerful, Jedi ever, I think you can get away with him being like, oh, he's able to do some things that others can't. And I think one of the reasons. Like with you guys say, this was fully Anakin, but we've talked about Dave Filoni messing around with the whole idea of the Force and light side, dark side, but the Bendu, the one in the middle, that kind of thing. Anakin is one of those characters that I think is able to blend the dark side and the light side. And we see this in here. He taps into the dark side, right? To teach Ahsoka a lesson. And at the end, I think where I see that it's Anakin is at the end when he like steps back, right? Ahsoka has, and she's like, I choose to live. She learned the lesson, right? And then he steps back. She doesn't fall into the dark side because she kind of gets the Sith eyes too.
Her eyes turn red.
And so she would have failed if she kills Anakin there.
Right.
But she doesn't. She learns the lesson. I choose to live. And then when he steps back, and he looks down and then looks back at her, and it's Anakin again, and he's like, there's still hope for you yet, right? And then he disappears. That to me is like proved that was Anakin. It wasn't just like, oh, is it a figment of her imagination? I truly believe that was Anakin teaching her that final lesson so she becomes Ahsoka the White. And I think we will see him again later on in this series, and I think they're actually going to have a conversation that's not just kind of like him in riddles. I think it's going to be actually Anakin and Ahsoka having a conversation like it were in the Clone Wars kind of thing, but a resolution to their relationship.
I hope so. I honestly hope so, because if this is all we get of Hayden Christensen, it was awesome. Like, knocked it out of the park, amazing. But I still want more.
Yeah.
It makes me like, I enjoyed Obi-Wan, but the show, but it's like, this is what we really wanted. You know, we wanted Hayden Christensen in his Clone Wars outfit, which was amazing. And I think that's where they missed the mark on the Obi-Wan show. If they would have given us flashbacks with Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen in their Clone Wars outfits, giving some backstory, stuff like that. We got that one scene of them.
Yeah, you got one scene.
That's it. And I think they really missed the mark on that. But yeah, just getting all that in this episode was amazing. Yeah, just great all around.
Yeah, and I hope, because the reviews on this are the best. This episode is like a 9.5 out of 10, whatever rating system they have out of all the TV series episodes. So obviously they've got to take notice of this. This is a no-brainer for Disney. Make sure Dave Filoni has his hands in anything that's important.
Yes.
Because just the attention to detail and just the depth of the characters, the dialogue is really well done. It's just the best. It has, I mean, I would put myself on out there to say this is some of the best dialogue in all of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because of the depth, like just the simplicity of the lines, but there's more meaning to it. And it's just like, there's some, the original trilogy, there's some really good lines and really good stuff, but this is just, oh man, it's just, maybe it's recency bias a little bit too. Because we've had to go through some of the not so great stuff.
Yeah.
This seems so much better, but I don't know. I think I try to be as unbiased as possible, and I just think that it's high quality stuff. And from lighting to visuals to the CGI levels to the writing to the music to the lightsaber fights.
Yeah.
I think everyone enjoyed when they're on the bridge thing, and he did the little
Everyone's like, ah!
Oh, dude, that's freaking
He
sick.
did the thing.
He did the move.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool to see all that. It's just, I don't know. Yeah. Because it's a new character, Ahsoka, to most people. And it wasn't like, oh, this is just banking on nostalgia. It's like, there is nostalgia there with Anakin, but I don't know. Yeah.
It wasn't just like a montage of, oh, let me show you this, let me show you that. It was like, no, there's a purpose for the stuff that they were showing. And I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah. As far as the writing goes, Andor had great writing, right? I think that's one of Andor's strongest. You've got 3 speeches in that show that are amazing. But I feel like if I was just watching, it was in another show, I would have been like, oh, that's great writing in the show. This is Star Wars specific writing that's dealing with philosophy of the Jedi, going back to things that happened with Ahsoka and Anakin. And it's done really well. And it's also bringing up those different topics, which I think is which is awesome for me. Just their whole conversations of her going through what am I doing here? Oh, yeah. Am I just supposed to be a soldier? Is that all I can pass on to my Padawan? It's the same thing that Baylan Skoll's been telling her. Yeah. It's this is what your master and you, this is your guys' legacy. It's a legacy of violence. And that's what she's struggling with. And I like how in these scenes, Anakin even is oh, you're hung up on this. Oh, you still think I'm the bad guy. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about it. Yeah. And just that journey that she goes through from being hey, I got these clones killed because they were following my orders. And Anakin tells her yeah, well, we make mistakes. Right. And then in the next section, she's well, you made mistakes basically. And she's you made terrible mistakes and you're the worst. Right.
Right.
And he's going through and showing her yeah, you can make mistakes, but the mistakes aren't what makes you in the end. You can overcome that. and just the way that it was all laid out, I thought was just really well done.
You know, it's so funny because you're saying all these things that, yes, were communicated, but they weren't said necessarily. Like,
Oh, no,
they
yeah.
weren't said that long.
Right,
And that's
right.
when you say Andor was great writing. I agree. I think this is better storytelling, and there's a difference, right? Andor was able to say paragraphs of stagnant set pieces, where this is action. These are flashbacks, and they have very few lines, and there's so much more communicated.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
why, in my
Well-
opinion, it's superior, at least for my taste.
Especially when you were talking about that, I was thinking of the line he says, where he's like, "You're more than that because I'm more than that."
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And in that line, you can take it as, "Oh, that's him being the selfish Anakin," but I don't think it is. I think he's saying what you're saying.
Right.
This is the Anakin that threw the Emperor down to save his son, right? Who destroyed the Empire. It wasn't Luke, it was Anakin, right? And so he's saying, I'm more than what you like, because she's like, you're the most dangerous and, person being or whatever. And he's saying, you're not getting it. Like you're saying, there's more. And in those little lines, they're simple. But if you can just go over them really quickly. But if you actually think about it, you're like, no, he's teaching her more than that. Like, you're more. And then he says a thing about the legacy. I learned from my master. He learned from his. I taught you. He's like, you're part of a legacy, and you need to understand that. Like, the story continues, and it's not just based on the bad things I did, but what was my final act, right? So I just think those are really cool story beats that are communicated, and if you don't think about it, you'll just miss it and be like, oh, that was cool.
Right.
But if you analyze it and dig a little deeper, you find that there's like richness into it, and it leads into the change of Ahsoka, which is really cool. That I think she's gonna, in my theory, I think she either dies or becomes like one with the Force at the end of the series, or has to do a sacrifice, because they keep telling her,
Classic
you die,
Jedi
you'll
master.
die, right? Kind of thing. So I just think it's so well done how they did that and used Anakin to kind of use his light side and dark side to kind of push these ideas.
Well, it's interesting because you say, oh, I'm, because I'm more than that, blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking about that story beat. Okay, they need Anakin to teach Ahsoka this. And maybe some other writers might be like, okay, cool. Let's just do like a cool little like flashback to like when he turns on Palpatine and she witnesses it herself. But no, they didn't do that. They actually did it more of like a coach style, where you want to have the person you're coaching find it on your own. Like you learn the best lessons when you teach yourself, kind of, in that way. So it was just really good storytelling in that way, because you could have copped out a lot of different ways, but that was like a more like smart way to do it. So I just thought that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're just the dialogue and the way they did it. I like how Anakin almost gets like pissed off at her, like, oh, we're still talking about like this is what you're hung up on.
That
kind
was
of a thing.
interesting. He was like quite like aggressive too.
So
like he was very annoyed.
And I like that, like, because Ahsoka's been carrying this guilt with her, right? Because she's like, well, I left the Jedi Order, I abandoned my master. And what could I have changed it? Maybe like, could I have avoided this? And so it's like finally at this point where he kind of walks her through that of like, like I ultimately like I did terrible things, but ultimately I am more than that, kind of a thing. And I think that that leads to the realization of she gets the chance to strike Anakin down, right? And she's like, no, I'm gonna choose life.
I'm more than that.
Yeah, I'm more than trying to right this guilt that I've been carrying with me. Like, she's accepting it and moving beyond that. And yeah, I just really well done. I think it's subtle enough. I think it's just really well done. And awesome performances by both the actors, even the actress that played young Ahsoka.
Yeah, she was great.
She was really good. Give me an entire show of Clone Wars.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't even care if it's
even
a
little
shot-for-shot
scenes,
remake, dude. Give it to me. I don't
Even
care.
little scenes where she puts her hand and the clone grabs it.
Yeah.
Like, that was really well done. Her acting there, seeing Rex, like just a little stuff like that was just like, Dave Filoni knows how to do little scenes that go a lot farther than you think. Like, oh, it's a 10-second scene, but it's like it really makes an impact. Like little stuff, and I think that's why he understands what the fans want, and he understands Star Wars so well, is because there's more to it than just show me the flashy things, right? There's heart to it, and he gets to the heart of what Star Wars fans want.
Yeah, and I would even argue that, Dave Filoni isn't a one-to-one copy of, George Lucas. It's like, it's a different, he does his own stuff. Like, he's prioritizing other things. I think the dialogue is very different. If you go back and watch those prequels and, the original trilogy, it's different writing. Yeah. Like, it's not from the same person. It's not like a cheap knockoff. It's more like he learned what the core and most important aspects of Star Wars is from him. Yeah. And then integrated his own storytelling on top of that. And it's just so cool to see that. And I think it's something that Star Wars needs. Yeah. You can't just do copies. Oh yeah, the master gets the new apprentice, and then self-sacrifice, and just this, and then there's Sith. It's like the constant rotation. It's like you can't just do that. You just can't keep going back to the well. And it's like he made Ahsoka, and this is his baby and his original story, and so it's just cool. Yeah, it's just cool to see it, and it's a new modern take on Star Wars, so it's really cool. I really enjoy it.
Let's go into a little predictions. Okay.
Well, before you do that, I was gonna say, were there any negatives?
Not for me.
The funny thing is, we tend to get really stoked when things go right, and when things go wrong, we only focus on negative things. So there's no negatives that you guys can think of.
I think for me, whenever it would leave Ahsoka and Anakin, I was like, because I wanted to see that.
Sure.
But I thought I think that's a natural thing, because we're like, oh my gosh, it's Hayden Christensen. But I thought the scenes they did when they were away from the World Between Worlds were really good. Like the stuff they did with Jason and the lightsabers and the sound of that, the Force theme was really good. To give you a little context of stuff, when she's talking to Hu Yang and they're looking for her, and he brings up like, what was his master like? They give you enough backstory. They name drop Kanan, they name drop Leia. You get some understanding of what is going on with Hera and what she's putting at risk. The fact that they're like, hey, we're going to strip you of everything, which again, I'll say this every episode. The New Republic sucks. It absolutely sucks. And I'm going to go a step further. Mon Mothma, shame on you. You suck as well. Not only are you mean to your husband in Andor, but now you are giving the whole galaxy back into somehow Palpatine returns. You suck, Mon Mothma, and I am ashamed I ever rooted for you. Anyways, so I thought the scenes worked really well. They were still very interesting, even though it wasn't like, it's hard to contend with flashbacks to Clone Wars and stuff, but I thought the scenes were still interesting and were pushing the story forward, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think we didn't just take a detour of like, oh, now this is a side episode where we get to do Anakin and Ahsoka's greatest hits. We were still pushing the story forward.
Like you
predicted. Like Darth Maul, Han Solo, all these crazy things.
Hey, you got Rex, though.
You did.
We all got Rex. We all got a point. I will say, though,
crazy.
I'm giving me a point for Coruscant, because she mentions come back to Coruscant, so that means the planet we saw was Coruscant. So me and Corey get a point. Thank you very much.
No, I don't think so. Disputed.
Yep. We'll talk about it at the end.
Yeah.
It'll come to judge and jury.
But yeah, I mean, I do like the stuff at the end too, with, like you said, Ahsoka the White. She has that white shawl, and then her outfit's completely different. I was like, okay, let's go. Where's that staff at? Well, that's the question. How's she gonna get it?
I think she gets that staff in the New Galaxy.
I think she finds it in the Purgle's mouth.
Yeah,
could be.
He like coughs it up,
stuck in one of its little.
It's like
Ezra
a toothpick.
Ezra left it.
Yeah, it has a little message from Ezra.
But yeah, that was cool. The scene of them kind of going through the ships and then getting ready to jump. That was really cool.
And it looked good.
It looks really good.
CGI was good, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It was solid. Oh, man. Yeah. It makes everything that was like all CGI in the past like 2 years look so bad.
And I will say this. For all you people out there, I remember years ago watching Rebels. And every episode that come out, oh my gosh, that's filler. You see those whales? That was filler episode. It has nothing to do. Why do they always do filler episodes? Well, guess what? Joke's on you, jokers, because now those filler whales are all about it's important to the story. So there's no such thing as filler in Star Wars. Dave Filoni knows what he's doing. Let the man cook.
There's filler in that.
We're not going to get into this.
Yeah.
The Purgle were not filler.
Yeah.
They were established for a reason, and now we're seeing their reason. Thank you very much. Point for the good guys.
I don't know who you're fighting.
Did you think was there a negative for you?
I mean,
Because you said a 9.5 is what you'd give it or something. Almost perfect. So what was not perfect for you?
well, I mean, I've said this before, and it was on a lesser degree for sure, but maybe it's just there's just a lack of compatibility between me and Ahsoka as far as like identifying with her and like relating to her, I guess. And so like I don't like in these moments for some reason, like I'm just not, my heart isn't going out for her. Like I'm not invested emotionally with her to where I'm like, oh, I hope she makes the right decision or anything like that. There's just a little bit of a disconnect there. And, you know, the way I root for characters is like, you know, I'm just hoping for the best. And even though I know it's going to end good, I'm still tied up in their emotions and how they struggle and how, you know, you can just feel their emotions through their acting. And for her, this character and how Rosario portrays her, it just, for me, it just feels a little bit flat, just on the emotional side, on the emotional moments. So that's why it's maybe a 0.5 away from perfect.
I feel like I've heard people complain about that a little bit, like, oh, they feel like Ahsoka's acting more like, she's not acting like she does in the...
Like stoic.
She's more stoic. And I think we've seen a change in that from this moment on. I think that she was probably playing it like that on purpose. And now that she's Ahsoka the White, because you even see when she gets off the... when she wakes up, she's like, Jason's here. Like, she's actually excited. And I feel like you see more emotion. She's putting more emotion into things.
Yeah, she's not carrying the weight.
When she's talking to Hugh Yang, she's like, you know, at least, you know, I don't know where we're going, but we're going somewhere. It's better than staying, like, stuck, basically. And so I think that's how they were trying to, I don't want to say retcon, but basically they're like, oh, we get to tell, like we talked about before, we get to tell this story now. We can actually show you guys the change. So we're going to, she might act a little bit different than what we saw in animation.
Yeah.
But it's to see that character growth.
And you get the contrast before she's frustrated with Sabine, right? Throughout many of the episodes, when she does the whole forced memory kind of thing.
Yeah.
She knows Sabine gave him the map and did what she told her not to do.
Right.
But she doesn't have like a, oh my gosh, I knew it. It's more of like, she gets it. She feels bad. She's compassionate about it. So there is that element of, I think what happened in the World Between Worlds has changed her. And I think that's what they're going to, hopefully,
we'll see.
For you, it kind of helps out that situation a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I would love to actually feel more invested in her journey and her experiences in this for sure. Because if it does turn out the way that you think it's going to happen, where she sacrifices at the end of this, that would fall flat for me because I wouldn't care as much.
Well, I don't. So
that's what you just said.
That's what you said. You said that earlier. You can't backtrack now.
But I'm not. No, I don't know if it's going to be like she dies. She
goes on vacation,
or she is left behind
in that galaxy. Right. Well, I think it's going to be something that there's going to be a sacrifice to her, whether that's she becomes something in the Force that's different, she stays in that galaxy in exile or something. But I think there's going to be a big kind of thing that she has to do, because I think they keep pushing that element of you have to die, you'll die kind of thing. And an interesting thing...
Yeah, well, didn't he say choose to live?
Right. But he says if you don't fight, you will die, right? Yeah. They say that. Well, what if in a moment happens where she chooses not to fight and she has
then
to...
Then it would go backwards on her whole lesson.
Well, I don't think so, because I think they're teaching multiple things. But the reason I think that is because Dave Filoni shared a thing of a deleted scene he's like, oh, I never showed you guys the deleted scene in Rebels where Ahsoka met the Bendu. And in that conversation, he's like, there's a bigger conversation, but he's like, I think this is the most pertinent. And so it was the Bendu talking to Ahsoka about, he's like, if you go on this journey, you will die and you will change. And she's like, well, doesn't everybody change? And he says, I'm not talking about change. I'm talking about death. And so I think there's a reason he shared that.
Wouldn't you say that she did go through a change?
Well, she did.
Well,
but I think
that's the change.
But
Getting off the white. Died,
I know,
came back.
but what I'm saying is I think there's going to be more to it than just in this episode. I think there's going to be something bigger that Dave Filoni is teasing out.
I don't think it happens. It might happen eventually. I don't know.
Yeah, if you don't put an end date on that, then it's so generic. It could be movies down the road. But I actually think that she's key to the new kind of, and maybe even more correct way of the Jedi or whatever that would be moving forward, and how, people are trained moving forward, not in these absolute Jedi old school dealings. So,
but would she be more important alive or as a powerful Force ghost that can appear to people?
Definitely alive. I mean, that's more impact. Because she can actually train them day to day.
Well, what if she can train them as a Force ghost? What if Dave Filoni does something where she is the daughter? If we connect something with that, because I think at some point she has to die.
You're right. 100%
and so
right with that will happen eventually.
The problem with keeping her around is that there's a moment where the Rey stuff and all that stuff with Luke that they're already tied to. They can't retcon
she's got
it.
30 years.
I know, but what I'm saying is there's stuff there. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, she died in 20 years.
10
years before The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, sure.
Or Force Awakens.
I know, but here's a problem.
Or something like that.
But here's a problem. If she's around and training people and doing all this stuff, she's connected. She wouldn't let the First Order start up again.
Well, she's dead.
I know, but they build up in the.
So she's dead by then.
I know, but she's building up. They don't just happen in one day. It's over these 30 years that they build up. They're building this constantly thing. There's books about it. Leia starts even 5 years into the New Republic. She's like, there's still stuff out there. So
she's supposed to single-handedly stop that from happening?
I'm not saying that.
You already said the New Republic sucks.
No, but what I'm saying is if you have too many characters that are sounding the alarm, it takes away that impact of it. And I think Ahsoka is a character that if you keep her alive in reality for too long, it's just something that they're going to have to explain and deal with. So I think
end of the season, she's dead. You're saying?
I'm saying there's something that's going to happen. Either she dies or she gets left in the other,
and we won't see her come back.
And she gets left in the other galaxy.
So she won't come back in the movie.
Oh, I don't know. I assume she will, but I don't know if she comes back as a Force ghost.
She's not dead.
Okay, you said Force ghost. So
listen to what I'm saying.
I would assume that she does that self-sacrifice in the movie, and it'd probably be an Act 1 sacrifice or something like that.
What I'm saying is something's going to happen. She either stays. I'm not saying she dies. If she stays in that and everyone else comes back, or she does something to become more powerful in the Force or something. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying she's dying. I'm saying that might be a possibility, or she's at least staying in exile.
We're trying to have you hard commit to something.
I know, but I'm not.
Saying she'll eventually die.
No, I never said that. What I'm saying is,
you said at the end of the season.
Yes, at the end of the season, something's going to happen.
She's going to be dead. I hope something does happen. Gosh, I really do.
Well, I think that she is going to be a key component in the overarching story for sure, and I think that's unavoidable because Dave Filoni is going to be kind of pushing this forward, and so I hope that she's kind of the catalyst, maybe giving us a new kind of lease on Star Wars. I think she could be the potential for that for sure. So that would be very cool, and I think that whenever she does pass or whatever, I 100% expect her to be a very powerful Force ghost, especially because of what we've learned with her, I guess, being the daughter with the Force. She's got, problems. She's going to be unlimited probably in what she can really do. So, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward.
Unlimited power, some might say.
Mm-hmm. That's right. But yeah, so that's my thing.
Cheer up, big guy. Cheer up, this guy.
I give a theory, and then all I get is slapping the face
just
from
wanted
this
you to
guy over
commit.
here.
I just wanted you to commit.
I don't need to commit. I already said she either dies or she stays over in the galaxy. And I'm just saying. But that's it. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. But yeah. So yeah.
This is my prediction. She's not dying. She's gonna train Jason Syndulla to be a Jedi. Boom. Let's go. Now that's a prediction. Put it in your books.
There you go.
Commit hard. Lock it in.
Love it. I love that.
Taking notes, Jonah.
I'll commit to Chopper murdering probably hundreds of thousands of people.
Heck yeah.
In the near future.
Lock it in.
I'll lock that in for sure. But yeah, great episode. Sorry I asked the question. Jeez, what would you guys rate the episode?
10 out of 10.
Okay, go ahead.
I have no negatives. 10 out of 10.
Okay, well, there's no other better one in the near future then, ever.
There can still be another 10 out of 10.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Nah.
So one person wins first place in a race, and you can't have next year the same person win that race in first place.
I would point you towards ice figure skating. That's how I would look at it. And pay attention to
They
their
give
scores.
10s in figure skating
They do.
and in diving.
And very rarely.
But they do. So that means
very
once
rarely.
one person gets a 10, another person can't get a 10?
Well, so for certain tricks, right? And so if you're
Yeah,
judging,
like a triple sow cap.
So if you're judging all of Star Wars, out of all the Star Wars things, that's a very rare thing.
Well, yeah, but rare doesn't mean that there's only one.
Okay.
Because I can have like a rare Pokemon. There's not just one. There's not just one Pokemon.
I love Pokemon.
There's a couple Pikachus that are rare.
I can't wait for the next episode to be a 10 also. I got high hopes, baby.
Yeah, but
10's the rest of the way.
10.
Let's go, Dave.
10, the way I do rating is 10 out of 10 is technical perfect, and there's nothing better ever again.
So you'll never give a 10.
So for instance, if you made
He'll
this
give a 10 on his death.
so if you said this is a 10 out of 10, then another episode was better than this episode, crazily enough, right? First of all, I'd say, well, obviously that first episode wasn't technically perfect. So you would drop that score to 9.9.
I'm not giving perfection. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm saying it's a 10 out of 10. Like, I don't think of anything I would change to make it better, or I can't think of anything that I would put in there that would be like, would make me feel differently.
Correction, if they made the episod 3-4 hours.
That was actually going to be one of mine.
Say.
That was my cheeky one.
But that's just me being like, give me all the flashbacks.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, no. For my rating system, basically, yeah. So
pending.
If I put this 10
what
out
do
of
you
10,
call it? What's the scale called?
Honestly, the person who actually inspired me to rate this way is actually Dave Portnoy. Actually,
fool. We're gonna get canceled, bro.
The way he does his pizza reviews is very similar to ice skating reviews as well, or not reviews, scoring, where there's certain criteria, and I go through each, and then it totals 10. But that's really hard to do. So that's what makes 9 and anything over 9 so fantastic. That's an amazing show. It's an amazing episode. And so, yeah, if I were to rate something a 10, and then 5 years down the road, I experienced something that was better, then that would change that 10 down to 9.9 or 9.8 or whatever.
But I would say,
because maybe there were new avenues that were never even possible back then.
But I would say that it changes.
Sorry, let me specify. And I did say this, but that's my rating system.
Right. But for me, the ratings for me is kind of like there's an element of if I really like something, all right, and I'm like, I can't, like this episode, can I think of, there's not a negative in it that I would be like, oh, this sucked. So to me, it's like, no, it was perfect. That doesn't mean that the season finale, I'm like, oh, that was a 10 out of 10. That was a great season finale. It doesn't say it's better than the other one. It's like, no, these are at a standard that I'm like, this is a perfect ending. This is a perfect thing. I do the same thing with like, yeah, that's the, it doesn't take away the fact that if I make episode of 10, I can't have another 10.
I love the sentiment of it, and it is more of like I absolutely love this to the fullest amount.
Right.
And I also fully enjoyed this one to the fullest amount, right? But for me, it's more like, okay, I'm analyzing on a very technical way of like, unless it's the same episode, it's impossible for one to be exactly the amount of pleasure or like perfectness, right? Because it's a different episode.
Well,
There's
I
different
reserve
things that happen.
I reserve the right to give the next episode 11 out of 10.
Go for it. I love it. Yeah, turn it up to 11.
Or
I love
15
that.
out of 10. Or 99 out of 10.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope you rate everything 10 out of 10. Yeah, because that means you enjoyed them immensely, and that's great. But yeah, that's how I do it for sure.
Portnoy, huh? Hey, his pizza reviews are fantastic anyways.
That's all I watched, like in COVID. I watched like, a little before COVID. Like maybe 2019, I watched a lot of his pizza reviews. They're really funny. But yeah, no, but I like the idea of like, because ultimately I want to make a list, of all my favorite shows or games and to rank them accordingly. And I think that's cool because then that shows what type of things I enjoy the most. Because like if I said, oh yeah, the finale to Mando season 2, 10 out of 10, this episode, 10 out of 10. They're not the same episode. And actually, I enjoyed one more than the other, So at the end of your life, will you have one game that you're like, this is my 10 out of 10? This is the one 10 out of 10. One movie. Yeah.
One hamburger. One fast food joint.
Yep. That's the whole idea, is that there can only be one. It's like Highlander. Yeah. But I think it's fun that way. Like for me, because then I can document and I have an exact layout of what I love. If I just gave everything 10s I liked, it's like, well, that doesn't say much specifically about how to differentiate the 10s, right?
I feel like for me, the problem with ranking things that way is that I could watch this, I could play a game at a certain time in my life and then play it years later, and my experience will be different based on the life that I've lived, the things that I personally have experienced. So if my rating might change based off of that exact same day. So it's, even if I have this list of like, this is the movie that I watched and this is my ranking, it's going to be completely different 10 years from now.
But I would ask you, how do you differentiate 10s from each other? Like, how would you know, or are you just saying that, well, it's just a different type of enjoyment, like, or it's just a different type of movie? Because like, for me, it's like, okay, yeah, what's the best horror movie, or what's the best adventure game, or what's the, it's not like all games. It's like, well, what's the best, MOBA? Okay, I can do that. I can figure that out. Right. And it's like, I'm not going to give League of Legends a 10 and Dota 2 a 10, even though they're technically the most popular MOBAs ever. But for me, it's like League of Legends is better, so I can eke out Dota 2. And so it's just more like, what's it called? Genres or, criteria.
By the way, the best boba is mango bobas.
With? What do you put inside it? You don't do tapioca.
Wait, the bobas are
No.
mango. The little
The bobas are mango.
Fruit.
The fruit
Oh.
bobas. Yeah.
So just norm? So,
What is it? Coconut?
well,
Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm doing a mango
Strawberry?
strawberry is going to be
Oh, like
a
a
strawberry
shake, like the
smoothie
shakes?
shake with
Okay.
a mango
Strawberry
boba.
with mango boba.
Boba.
I mean,
I said boba.
yeah.
Here's the problem with Portnoy
Boba Fett.
doing pizzas, because
Okay.
the issue is you go and have that pizza. He goes, it's a 7.3, right? Whatever. He's like, good pizza, good. I like the crunch of the crust, and he's like thin pizza, just like he likes
One
it.
bite, everyone knows the rules.
One bite, everyone knows the rules.
Okay.
But that's dependent on like who made it.
made it
Because
that
he could
day.
go the next day
You're
and give
absolutely
another
right.
pizza and be like, oh,
This is different.
just saying.
One thing is set in stone, right? The movie is unchanged. That's it. Or there's
it
different
could
versions
change.
of them. Yeah, but pizza's totally different.
Not really.
Yes,
Because
really,
even-
of what you just said. It could be different people cooking the pizza.
Right,
so it's
but also it can change depending on my mood. If I'm like,
Not for me.
if I'm not as hungry, I've eaten something else and I go and eat it, and it's like,
are you
it's
talking
not the
about
same.
movies?
If I'm starving,
If I watch a movie and I'm hungry,
if
I
I'm
might not enjoy
starving,
it.
if I'm starving and I go, I might enjoy that pizza a lot more because I'm like, man, that hit my spot.
Great example. So let's say, okay, same idea. I don't quite like puzzle games nearly as much as like MMOs or adventure games, right? So it's the same idea, right? Okay, well, there is a best for me puzzle game out there, right? Or, the best. So it might be a 9, 8, whatever. But like in that genre, that exists. I didn't like it. I don't like it nearly as much as Zelda or whatever, but it's there. And you compare them to like things. So like, I guess you would compare like, in that case, then maybe you're like, I really like this brick oven pizza place. And every time I go,
only when I'm hungry.
And every time I'm there, it's different. And so you take that into calculations. Well, it's inconsistent cooking.
I'm always good with calculations.
It's not perfect. That might mark it down for you, but that's how it is. There's a lot more thought process than just, I like that 10, kind of
I'm not saying that's not what I do.
Oh, that's 100% what I do. I don't give a crap. What do you want me to say? It's a 10, bro.
Yeah,
10 out of 10.
That's great.
You want to fight about it? Let's go.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. That's great.
Anything else you guys want to talk about before we leave?
I don't think that there's much, right?
A Nintendo Direct tomorrow and a PlayStation
State of Play.
So we'll be talking about that next week.
Aquaman, the most anticipated movie of the year. Trailer
It's gonna
drops
bomb
tomorrow. Let's go.
That they cut the legs out from that movie, which is insane. That it's $1 billion. The first one was $1 billion movie, and this one they just have completely. There was an article that said that WB has given up on Aquaman. They're just like, let's just.
They said
throw it
they
out
weren't
there.
going to do any marketing for it. And then this teaser mysteriously appeared. So people are like, huh.
Yeah.
Like,
and
let's
so
put a trailer out,
James Wan is like, I'm done with this. I need a long break and I don't want to be close to the ocean on my vacation. He'd like.
Can you imagine?
Or any fish.
It's insane.
Ruining your love for
It's
the ocean.
insane to me how WB has handled this kind of stuff. But WB is going to WB.
There was an article that said, they lost the actual trailer that they were going to release. Which I'm like, I don't know if they found it or if they had to piecemeal that one together or
it might be better if they lost the whole movie, to be honest. They should just
Kingdom.
dump it on HBO Max instead of. It's crazy. There's a rumor that Universal is going to buy WB next year. So.
Woohoo. Another round of
I don't know. As long as they get rid of
firings. Yeah.
But yeah, what a mess WB is.
The Snyder cuts back on, baby. Snyderverse, let's
it's just
go.
always going to be in constant, like, in between. And
what's going to be crazy is when people compare Aquaman to Rebel Moon. Because you already have that people that are saying, like, the Flash looks so... how does the Flash look so terrible when it's like a $300 million budget and Rebel Moon is, 80-something million or whatever, and it looks better.
I mean, I already know Aquaman's going to be way better than Rebel Moon. I don't even have to see a trailer to tell you that.
We'll see.
dang.
But that's...
Lock it in.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy how they've dropped the ball with WB stuff.
Yeah.
And Dune got pushed back.
There's nothing coming out.
Yeah, what's up with that?
It'll literally have no
did
competition.
They say anything
in
about
theater.
that?
Just because of the strike, they wanted to push it back.
Oh, because
so
of
that
the
they could have
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah.
so they can have people go on Jimmy Fallon and promote.
Which I don't...
See,
I feel like
the normies, dude.
I feel
it's
like
people's grandmas that are like, "Oh, I saw Timothy Chalamet's talking on the Greg Norman show or whatever that guy's name is."
I feel like if there's a strike going and there's not movies for people to watch, especially around Christmas time, you're like, what is there to do? Oh, Dune Part 2's out. I feel like you don't need people to be like doing interviews. It's like throw some trailers, TV spots.
It is part of it.
Why do you need actors to go and be like, hey, come watch my movie? I don't know.
It's part of the slate. Like, so they'll have like set things that they always want to hit.
Yeah. Well, it's part of the
Just
demographics
default.
you want to hit.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, we're doing trailers for everyone. Oh, we're doing TikTok, whatever reels for all the kids. We're doing
just hire me.
shows.
I'm not part of the writers or actors. I'll
You
do your
scab, dude.
TikToks.
You scabbing for the WV?
Do you know what's crazy?
That's funny.
Do you know what's crazy is the amount of people that you see on TikTok. They're like, I'm not going to do content until later. I'm like,
Like, you're not
just
part of the
do
union, bro.
content.
Okay.
Like, I guess and then there's one guy that he's a TikToker and he's like, hey, I got a call from they want to pay me to do a show on TikTok. And they're like, this guy is taking advantage of the fact that these workers are, I was like, let him. It's his big break. Whatever.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And I mean, hypothetically, right? It's not a tier 1 option for them. So it's like a lesser option for them. So it's like, hypothetically, they wouldn't get as much, traffic or eyes on impressions. So it's like, I mean, let the guy get his money.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about Ahsoka every week. And we don't get paid by Disney. We don't get paid by anything.
WB, if you want to pay us to pump Aquaman, hit us up.
Yeah. Send us
some merch. Send us some seahorses.
No, send us an agreement. Shut up. I'll handle this, okay?
Send me some hot toys.
Spam,
send me some Zack Snyder's Justice League hot toys.
Send us a sales pitch at the Nerd Age.
I don't know even what our email is. The Nerd Age Podcast.
The Nerd Age Podcast
at gmail.com.
So send your inquiries there and we'll go over it.
That's exactly right.
Our price is pretty high, though. So
extremely high.
Write those checks high. Oh, man. I mean, realistically, if someone paid us to go over something, would you actually it'd have to be with the preface or the premise of, hey, we're going to be honest about it, right? It's not going to be like, oh, we're going to just be.
Are we going to be honest?
The soul of the devil. He doesn't care.
I mean, there's a big article that came out about Rotten Tomatoes. It was like, oh, there's been corruption.
Fake reviews.
They fake reviews.
Yeah,
they would pay people to give bad reviews. I was like, yeah, I knew this from the beginning when Man of Steel got like a 50 something.
Okay.
You
the
don't
article
think
is about a specific movie, okay,
right?
guys?
But you don't think Disney has? You don't think Disney has been
Ridley?
You don't think
They
Disney
paid people $50?
Is the first time they ever got caught?
You don't
is what
think
he's trying to say.
Disney has
That's
ever
the first
been
time they
like,
took a
hey
hat over
guys, I'll invite you over to do this. I'll give you these baskets for you to give us favorable reviews.
Sure,
the amount of Marvel movies that have great reviews. And you're like, that movie is trash.
So that's because they invite these people to the show, to the premieres, and they wine and dine them, and then they're like, wow, what an experience.
Right. But that's what they do with.
You don't think WB was doing that to people?
Mm-hmm. Don't think so.
No.
Not like Disney.
If I know anything about WB, those people have integrity. You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying obviously. When you've got bad Marvel movies that are like 90% and Man of Steel,
there's dumb reviewers out there.
I think there's more.
You're saying there's more. Tomatoes. You're saying there's more corruption than there is dumb reviewers out there.
No, I'm saying that studios would pay people money, and it's not just this one studio that's done it.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be like an.
Nah, dude, you're the worst. I'm quitting the podcast. I can't even
Me
do
and
anything.
Sea-Dog, let's go, baby.
We got this.
Have fun.
Yeah,
Mick, you can come back to it.
We're going to talk about video games all the time. I don't think there'd be like 70% variance, but yeah, I could see like 10-20% variance for sure. Because there's not that many critics. Like it's hundreds, right? Not thousands. So it's like, you can buy off a lot of people pretty easily, Give them some gift baskets, Chocolates go a long way.
Hey, I'm not saying it's not a possibility, but it's...
Well, that's what you said.
I think when it comes...
It seems like, anyway.
Yeah.
I've hurt Jonah's feelings too much tonight, so I'm going to stop talking.
Yeah, guys. Hey, come on, guys. What can we...
And I was so excited for this podcast to begin with. You know
what the problem is? Mick is usually between us as a buffer, so it's all your fault, Mick.
Did I?
No, we're good.
Did I start it? When I said, was there anything negative? Was that the key? Was that the catalyst? I'm sorry about that.
No, we're good.
But hey, I mean, that episode was fantastic. And it was super fun. I love it. And so, I don't know. We are already done with Ahsoka, but we have 3 more episodes of Ahsoka, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Sweet.
Finally get to see Thrawn.
I was kind of disappointed that it was only 50 minutes, though. I was like, they showed it in theaters and it's only 50 minutes. Dang, I was hoping for at least an hour,
Hey, if they're going to do the finale in theaters, I'm considering driving to Seattle.
Dang.
Got to make sure I don't have a soccer game, but if we don't, I'll be like...
It's like 30 minutes.
Worth it.
Hour and a half.
Hey, we stood in line overnight to get a Wii.
Yeah.
So it's just another one of those moments.
Yeah.
Memories. By myself, but memories nonetheless.
So the memories. Yeah. Well, hey, man, the drive to Seattle is not too bad.
Yeah, I'll borrow your Tesla and we'll just
I'll go.
No, do the
why
auto
why
drive.
don't I get invited? You're talking about how
He's
lonely
mad,
it
he's
is.
mad at you, dude. He's mad
Never
at you.
invited me once.
Yeah.
Just
All right, let's do it.
because I don't make Man of Steel my number one
That is true.
superhero movie.
You didn't give it a
You
10
guys
out
are
of
all
10.
false. That should be a
If
10 out of 10
I
movie.
gave it a 10 out of 10, would you be happy?
At the end of your life, I want you to see what's the best Superman movie.
Yeah, just before I,
Yeah.
have what's it called?
Before we pull the plug?
Dementia, early onset dementia. Before that happens, I'll rate everything.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Man, it still better be your 10 out of 10 for Superman movies.
You know what? It will be, man.
Nice.
Just to make you happy.
I'll take
This is
it.
exactly what Rotten Tomatoes was doing,
Yeah,
dude.
he's paying me
Oh
up.
my gosh.
Right. Well, that's going to do it for us at the Nerd Age Podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on TikTok. And as always, Corey does our YouTube videos. So check the YouTube page out. Share the videos. Listen to us on our podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else you get podcasts. We'll be back next week with more Ahsoka. Hopefully we'll see some Thrawn. Hopefully we'll see some Ezra. But yeah, and then we'll be covering the Nintendo Direct and the PlayStation State of Play and anything else that comes out. The Aquaman trailer, we'll talk about it because we're four dudes talking nerdy to each other. So we'll see y'all next week.
See you.
See ya.
Talk nerd to me. Wasn't one of the suggestions?